Energy up to the front if you can, would be great. So we're going to go ahead and kick off here. Thank you all for coming. If you don't mind filling up here in front so we can kind of feel a little bit more connected to everyone in the audience, that would be great. Thank you. My name is Jenny Dufresne. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Dufresne Solutions Group, a training and leadership development company focused on developing the folks in the middle, our mid-level leaders who are really the backbone of our companies. I'm excited today to talk about and to moderate this wonderful panel on building the right team. Team is what makes small businesses and big businesses run. Not individuals, but teams. So we're super excited to have folks here. We're going to have a really kind of a engaging conversation, and we'll have opportunities for everyone in the audience to ask questions towards the latter part of the presentation. So just to kick this off, to introduce our distinguished panel, we have Carolyn Valentine, who's the president of Valentine HR. Her company works with folks from startup to corporate HR departments. They have a strong understanding of the factors that comprise great human resources management. She and her team have deep knowledge of HR best practices, complex regulatory issues, business trends, and organizational dynamics in every one of her clients' success and successful execution of their strategies. Next, we have Dr. Leah Merrier. Dr. Merrier is the Chief Strategy Officer for Workforce Solutions in the capital area, the Travis County Workforce Board. We're excited to have her here. We have Daniel Barrera. Is that right? Daniel Barrera, Assistant Director for the Pflugerville Public Library. He's been in a supervisory role in the library for nearly 15 years. He's passionate about staff development, so this is a great conversation. And then finally we have Gerald Hutchinson, who is the COO of Medway Plastics, which is an injection molding plastics family-owned company that's located here in Pflugerville. Has a headquartered in California, correct? Okay, great. So with that, talking about building a great team, the thing that I think is really important is to first talk about the teams that we've been on. So I'd love for you all to just share what has been the best team that you've ever had the opportunity to serve on, and what made it the best, or what made it great. So anyone can just jump in and start.
Actually, I'm really lucky to be on a great team right now with the Pflugerville Library. I have a staff that's very dedicated and passionate about what they do. They're very devoted to seeking out continuing education opportunities. So it makes it a very dynamic and innovative work environment, which is amazing.
I'll say my current team as well, and not just because some of them are here today. But when I joined the Workforce Board, going on 3 years ago now, it was a department of 2, myself and 1 staff member. We're now about to hire our 12th team member. So I've really had the pleasure of growing that team and bringing people into the organization that didn't have a traditional workforce development background. So it's been really fun to see that sense of innovation come into the organization and really build a culture from the ground up.
Prior to coming to Texas, one of my roles was responsibility for research and development for our company. And I did a project where we invented and developed some brand new technology plastics that required polymer chemistry, mechanics, hydraulics, electrics, pneumatics, all these disciplines. So we assembled a team, both domestic and international, of industry professionals, professors from known universities, an entire big team. We developed this technology over a period of 3 years. And it was an extremely difficult and, in the end, very rewarding project. So it was the best team I've ever had the pleasure to work with.
My favorite team is the one where I was the least smart person on the team. Everyone else on the team had come with so much knowledge and experience, and it really elevated the ability that we had to solve the problems in front of us. And everyone also possessed a high emotional intelligence, and they were really willing to help each other and admit, when I don't know this, which is, as an entrepreneur, every time you think you know everything, you're in bad shape, because you don't. And as the previous session, I love the speakers who were talking about the panelists around hiring really smart people and then getting out of their way and letting them do what they do. And that's how I chose to grow this business from 15 years ago with me hanging out my shingle, and now for us to be the size we are, I hire really smart people and I get out of their way. I love that about the team.
It's a huge, I totally agree. I think building great teams is a huge and very important part of growth, the growth strategy. And it's important to think about that. So before we get into this a little bit more, I'd love to know who's in the room. And so can you raise your hand if you're an entrepreneur that is you're building your business, maybe you're just thinking about it, up to about 2 years old. Just throw your hand up so we know. Okay, really throw your hands up, because it's awesome that you're an entrepreneur and you're doing this thing. Okay, great. And then those folks from about 3 years old to 5, 6 years old, throw your hands up. Okay, great. And then those of you who are 6 years old and older, throw your hands up. Okay, fantastic. So we have a good, and then how many of you have a team right now? And a team can be 2 or more people. Just raise your hands. Okay, fantastic. So about 50% of the room, that's great. So we'll be able to talk about some things that might be really relevant for the work that you have. So all of us are impacted by the historic low employment rates. So as you all know, I think we're at 3% or something like that nationally in terms of the folks who are not employed. And so that makes it really challenging, particularly for small businesses, to be able to find great people. And so I'd love for everyone to just share, what are some things that small businesses can do to be able to compete with the big dogs? So those big companies that can kind of fling money all over the place, what's a small business to do to be able to find to attract and retain great talent?
I think the most important thing that you can do as a small business owner is attract employees the same way you look at attracting customers. Have a strategy for attracting employees. And that should coincide with the strategy you have for attracting customers. Whatever your vision or your mission is around what it is you're trying to solve and help folks with, that's the intent of most businesses on helping you solve a problem in some way. Finding those folks that believe in that same vision and mission, which means you gotta connect with them. And how do you do that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, a lot of companies don't consider their vendors and their customers as part of their team. And you have to bring everybody in to that fold and that mentality.
Yeah, oftentimes a vendor could become an employee, or a former employee that you said goodbye to can turn into a great resource of new employees, because it's more of like an alumni association. You're constantly looking at that. An employee could be anyone in the vicinity of the business.
And I would say, as you do those things, you really want to highlight staff development as a priority and give people that you hire training opportunities. At the library, my directors, we're very lucky to work for a director that pushes continuing education, so that our employees, we don't tell them, hey, go to this training. It's part of their job to go search for those opportunities, even coming to events like this, and really finding motivated people that have that self-motivation to push themselves forward so they can grow with your company and be a part of it.
Yeah, anything you can do to avoid turnover is going to help your bottom line. And a lot of folks don't know that there are free resources available through Workforce Solutions. So I represent Capital Area, that's Travis County. Outside of Travis County, you can talk to the folks at Rural Capital. They're our sister board. But we actually have funds, especially if you are a small business. It's really strategic to take advantage of, because we will cover up up to 90% of the cost of your incumbent worker training. So it's a very small percentage you have to pay in to get the skills your entry-level workforce needs to stay with you and grow with you. So I really encourage you, my colleagues have a table outside in the hallway, to talk to them about that resource, because you've paid with it through your tax dollars, and we're ready to help you, because quite frankly, we're a small business ourselves. Our total staff counts about 35 full-time employees, so I have felt many of the same challenges in terms of how do I, as a nonprofit, compete with higher salaries, for example, or sexier brand names. And so just on kind of one note of what we've done is we've offered flexible Friday schedules so that folks can work longer hours every other Friday, take the day off. We also offer the option to telecommute one day a week. So we're really trying to offer flexibility as a benefit, knowing that we might not be able to compete with some of the for-profit salaries out in the community.
I think looking at your total reward system that you have for your employees as a pie, and there's pieces of that pie, and the ability that you have to communicate with your candidates and your employees about the value of that entire pie, not just having a conversation about a wage or a salary, but looking at the value of your benefits, the value of the training you provide, the value of the opportunity to learn something on the job. And I think being willing to say this is the whole piece of it, and how it is that we can compete with those larger companies in a way that's because we're small, we're agile, because your commute is less than half of what it used to be. Going from a 30-minute commute to an hour commute, my gosh, people, there's a value of that. Or going from an hour commute down to a 30-minute commute, there's a big value in that, in the work-life balance you can have. A lot of folks are really excited about working for small companies because they can see how they can make a difference more quickly, and they want to be able to do that. And the ability that you have to say, I'm going to take a chance on you. Maybe you don't have 100% of the skills that I'm looking for. Maybe you have 75, and I know the partners that I can work with to get you up and running really quickly. You've got a loyal employee there who's excited about taking the next step as well. Continuous, I think that's the number one thing, is learning on the job.
And to piggyback on that idea of training, I'm a big advocate for libraries, obviously. One of the things I'm proud of here in Pflugerville is we've developed a partnership with PCDC to bring lynda.com to the community through the library. So lynda.com, if you don't know, is an online resource for training taught by industry experts. So it's great for workforce development so individuals can improve their skills, but it's also great for small business owners where they can provide free training, maybe on customer service to their employees, and it's all free with your library card. So if you don't live in Pflugerville, you're welcome to join our library for a small fee, but I encourage you to look at your local library, because there's a lot of resources that libraries provide, and we're always trying to look at the community and see what the needs are. So build a relationship with your local librarian.
Yeah, all great points. For us, being in the manufacturing side, we offer a 3.5-day work schedule. So it's 3.5 on, 3.5 off, which they love. I think what really becomes important there is the culture you develop. People really want to work in a place that they enjoy. And then you put on top of that where, for us, it's great because we're manufacturing. Our training programs are really important to everybody. We bring entry-level people in. They move up quickly if they want, because it depends on how engaged they want to be. So all these things are important, but I would have to emphasize that the culture you generate within your company is very key.
It's huge. So how would each of you respond to the idea that I hear some business owners saying, well, geez, if I invest and I give them opportunity to be trained in all these things and all this, they're just going to leave me and go off and take their, all this great training to someone else. So what do you all say to that?
So there's a meme going around on LinkedIn that's about this, and it says, the CEO is saying, we're going to train our people. And the CFO is like, what if they leave us? And the CEO says, but what if they're untrained and they stay? Right? So it's about a trust that you develop. It's about the culture, right, Jill? It's about the trust you develop with your employees, that you're investing in them and they want to stay and invest in you.
But at the same time, I'm very open and honest with them and saying, look, what you learn here, you'll take with you the rest of your life. It's something that is yours. So if you have a better opportunity, I will never stand in the way of that. If what we're doing is appetizing to you from now till many years, great. If not, I'm looking for a happy workforce.
Yeah, and gosh, one of the not challenges, but one of the opportunities we have working with our industry partners is really creating a broader view of what's our local economy look like, not just what is your particular talent need look like, and we certainly want to create a pipeline to help you, but what's the overall health of our economy? Because you're going to benefit if X company, has a great training program, because one of those folks might come work for you one day, and it'll go both ways. But ultimately, I think if you create a culture of investment and growth and opportunity, people will be more likely to stay.
Yeah, I mean, staff development goes two ways. It's great for the organization, but it's great for the individual, and that's important too, because that in turn is great for society. And there's nothing wrong with part of our roles being developing people and improving the world we live in. So if people end up leaving, that's great. Then we bring in somebody else and we start the process over again. And that training system, when you have it in place, attracts people, and it improves the organization, and it improves the bigger picture. So I think it's all a positive thing.
I think that if there's a concern that a small business owner would have around everyone just coming to me for 6 months or a year to get trained and then move on, if you're having that concern, or if that's happening, if that is an issue that you're dealing with in the moment, I think the place to take a step back from that is to look at how are you recruiting folks, and who are you recruiting, and where in that cycle is it maybe broken that you're not identifying folks that want to stay with you. And so I think addressing that as a root cause of that turnover would probably benefit you, as well as you investing in time to train your folks.
I think we've talked, culture has come up a lot, and it's actually, when I've been on these panels before, it's one of the areas that I speak about a lot. So as small businesses, again, particularly, we have half the room has team, half the room is thinking about having team. And so what would you say, for all of you, what is culture in an organization? What does that mean? And what as a small business owner should I be thinking about today about the culture that I'm developing inside of my company?
The most important thing to think about with culture is communication. Spending the time to communicate. When you communicate, you're building trust. And trust allows everything to happen more quickly. It's the grease of the wheels. It's the grout in between the bricks as you're building your organization. And so the time that you spend communicating effectively in a 360 way, that doesn't mean you're listening to the employees say, that issue, that issue, oh my gosh. It's not about the squeaky wheel. It is about you saying, we're going to develop a great communication mechanism, and then we're going to follow it, and we're going to develop our trust. And with trust, you've got a great culture.
One thing that every successful company has in common is good communication. It is so, so important.
Can we unpack that a little bit, Joe? So I can imagine someone out there is thinking right now, well, shoot, I sent an email. Or, geez, I told them at the meeting what they need to do. Is that communication, or how would you all define what good communication is and how it contributes to building great teams?
One of the things that I've seen in the organizations I've worked at that's very effective is being direct. If something happens, talk to that person. There's sometimes managers take the style where something happens with one person and then they'll send an email to everybody. And, it may be effective in bringing up ideas, but it doesn't really directly address the issue. And I think that people do that because We want to avoid confrontation. I just think it's very important to be direct with your employees. If something happens that's positive, tell them. If something happens that's negative, talk to them about it and grow and look at it as a learning opportunity.
Well, and it's one of the benefits of being a smaller business is you can customize communication depending on the preference of each of your team members. So I think it's really understanding what is the best way to communicate. What style do I need to adopt to be heard? Our organization has been working with a coach on using Strengths Finder, which is a tool a lot of you might be familiar with. And even for folks I've worked with now for several years, I have learned a lot in the past few weeks about how I could have been communicating with them more effectively because they experience the world quite differently than I do. So I think it's really being able to customize that communication.
I'm going to go back to the customers and employees analogy I was making. So you spend all this time acquiring a new customer, and you're so excited, and then you land them, they sign the agreement, you're moving forward, or they're purchasing your product, or whatever they're doing, and then you just stop talking to them. Would you lose customers? Heck yeah. I see over and over again organizations that get all excited about bringing a new person on board, and then that person's first few days are just wandering around. There's no plan, there's no thought process as to who do they need to talk to, how do they need to get their materials put together. An employee makes a decision about how much they're going to give you in productivity in the first 30 days of employment. And if you are not getting your act together and organized and communicative and setting the bar, then they understand, okay, well, I'm going to give them 75 because they're basically giving me that. I see it over and over again. And so investing time and money into really great systems during the dating and the honeymoon period is the best thing you can do.
It's also, the constants and the variables, because you have things that are repetitious. Repetitious things are very easily documented in standard operating procedures. The variable stuff is about access. Is it access to a person? Is it access to a computer? Is it access to data? It's every aspect of communication within your business. And how do you simplify it? Make it easy. Give them easy access, give them accurate information. They know what to do. Give them a roadmap, follow the roadmap. Manage by process and procedure. That way you don't have to manage by personality.
And on this idea of culture, I've also worked for organizations where every decision seemed to work its way to the top. And that breeds a lot of frustration. So one of the things we've hit on training and trust a lot. I also think balance is a part of that. When to involve yourself in a decision and when to let others. And if you feel strongly that you've trained others, let others make those decisions so you can focus your time on other things. So I really think empowering your employees to be able to make the decisions, to feel confident in doing that is very important for the organization.
Perfect. Oh, and I was just going to piggyback on another thing you said, Daniel, which was about acknowledging success and giving credit. And I think some of the most toxic individuals I've worked with in my past have been stingy with credit and praise. And I think that breeds a lot of dissatisfaction in the workplace. And praise is free.
I think what we're hitting into is also, as I'm thinking about this title, building the right team, it occurs to me that we also have to be developing ourselves as the right leaders. And so I'd love you all to just touch on what does it mean, and when we're thinking about building a great team, what kind of work does the individual leader need to do in order to be the right leader for that right team that she or he is trying to develop?
I think the term emotional intelligence maybe was used earlier. I think part of that is really understanding individuals. When I first was in a leadership position, my nature is very much lead by example. And I thought, well, that's great, that's a positive thing, that'll work for everybody. But that's not true. You really have to understand who your employees are and adapt the way you lead and communicate with them to their personalities and the things that they have going on in their lives. And I think being more aware of these things makes you a better leader.
Yeah, I would say that everyone as a leader, no one's ever going to be 100% perfect. And if you are striving to have this, I'm like got it all together all the time, then the employees get that sense that that's how they're supposed to behave too. And then problems never come to the surface. And then you've got a big culture issue because you stop communicating anything but positive. Because you don't want, oh my gosh, well the leader doesn't seem to ever think anything's a problem, so I don't want to ever admit that there's a problem. And the ability that you have as a leader to be 100% authentic and say, hey, none of us are perfect, things happen, but you're modeling that I'm continuously learning and trying to get better myself is important. And if you have the courage to hire folks and delegate to them, and they know more about something than you do, that's a wonderful indicator to the whole rest of the organization. Oh, there's power in this. And A people hire A people, B people hire C people. We've heard that before. But when you are really saying it's okay to hire people smarter than you, it doesn't mean that your job is in jeopardy. It actually means I think you're the best leader possible for that team because you got the courage to do that. Yeah, that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I constantly tell our people, find your replacement, because I need you to do better things. And you bring them up. There's no job security issue there. Find somebody that can do what you do. It gives us redundancy, it gives the company security, and allows me to move you on to other things that you can excel and learn. It's about respect. It's not assumed, it's earned. And that goes from top to bottom. So everybody that makes a contribution to the company should be recognized and be and feel like they're part of that team. There's no levels. We all work together as a team. People work better when they know what's expected of them. You have to be clear about what is expected of them. Wherever you can, there's always ambiguity. And when you have that, people pitch in when there's problems or there's emergencies or whatever. That's when you know that you got a good team.
I think this becomes particularly important when folks move from starting that small business and where you might be plugging away all by yourself, doing 45 different jobs, and then as you transition into hiring your first team member or having your first 1099 or what have you, because I think it becomes really important to reflect back on this idea of leadership. What kind of leader am I? And am I releasing things and empowering or putting my team members in a great position to lead forward? So I think that's particularly a challenge point for those folks and those of us who have small businesses. We have to really always think about letting go and releasing and moving into our next best, great way that we can strategically lead our companies.
So real quick, but I just wanted to add real quick. So as a small business owner, it can be really difficult when you're trying to hire for positions that maybe you did part-time, like QuickBooks or sales or whatever, and you were doing all these things yourselves, and you're trying to hire that first person in that role. It's really scary to let go. And I would say to you that some advice to consider is hire for competency, not confidence. As small business owners, we can get swayed by candidates that seem confident, that want to come in and say, I can take over your sales and do a great job. And they get burned over and over again. They're like, I'll do it myself because everyone I've ever hired always doesn't do it the right way or this, that, whatever. What I would say is, if this is not your area of expertise, hire a good consultant. Reach out to resources that you have that can help you actually determine the competency of those first key hires. So that it's someone you trust. You're hiring your first bookkeeper, go to your CPA, have them really help you evaluate candidates so that you understand who really is competent.
I think that's such a good point because we've all, had the experience of someone who has interviewed really well and then performed poorly, or vice versa. So I think there's so much benefit of having a panel of your staff, even if you have a very small staff, vet that candidate, because everybody is going to view that candidate's competency and competence through a slightly different lens. Yeah, it's always the best when you can hire from someone who you trust as a solid referral.
And what have we heard all day pretty much is that I think the DNA of an entrepreneur is to hold it close, you know, to make all the decisions and just work yourself to death almost. Been there, done that, got too many t-shirts. And I'm second generation for our company. It's not going down on my watch. But what I had to really learn was to build a really good team that I was confident in and that could trust, and to simply let go. I mean, imagine that your company grows enough to where you have to transition from a mom and pop company to a corporation under scrutiny. And you almost have to, it seems like you have to do it overnight. You know, that's it's tough. Yeah, but you got to do it. You got to let go sometimes and trust the people that you've hired if you've hired well.
And in the hiring process, I think it's wonderful for an organization to have people that think differently. I think there's a tendency to want to hire people that are kind of like you, but that's not necessarily a good thing. In my current position, my director is very much big picture, and I'm a little more detail oriented, and that's a great match. So really think about personality types and the way people see the world, and be willing to hire people that think differently.
This is a great.
That's a great point.
Yes.
That's a great point, because it's a habit of us entrepreneurs to hire somebody like us. Don't do it.
The other thing that happens is that once you hire a great team to work for you, there is that tendency to go, gosh, where's the ownership mentality? And do they have it? And how much are they invested or not? And what I tell a lot of our clients that are interested in, finding that mini me is, well, there's a reason why you're the entrepreneur and you're running it, because there's lots of folks who are really okay about being the support person. Really okay about being the right-hand person. They really love that role, and let's not force them into a role that's not for their skill set or their mindset. So it's about meeting people where they're at and being realistic about how it is that they can help your organization grow.
And one thing I wanted to add, one of the resources Workforce Solutions offers is we can help you find candidates. We have a database of over 72,000 job seekers. We do hiring events at our 3 centers. But more particular to this question, we can do skills testing and some ability testing to help screen candidates for you. And once again, that's a free resource, particularly if you're looking for a very discrete skill set. We can make sure that that candidate has a demonstrated competency to do that for you.
So as we think about all these different things, the culture, who we are as leaders, how we're communicating with our teams, the kinds of values that we have inside of our organizations, I'm curious in each of your experience, what are some of the traits or quality or characteristics that are sort of outside maybe your position description that you find are really important for people to be great team members or to be part of your respective organizations?
Well, I would just say again that they are emotionally intelligent.
Can you unpack what that means for those who don't know that
sure,
particular
absolutely.
terminology?
That they're honest about who they are and what their strengths and weaknesses are. And that is, none of us are perfect. They can articulate, this is where I'm great, this is where I struggle. That they can be okay about constructive feedback, or be positive or negative. They're okay hearing, okay, this was a great, first draft you did of this job description, but I want to go back and review with you, and let's update it and upgrade it because it needs some work. And if that person's like, why are you being so mean to me? Hello, that's like the number one, something's wrong there, they're very defensive. The ability that they have to modulate their emotions, that they're not going to get too freaked out, sad, happy, angry about things that are occurring. They're going to say, okay, in this moment, I need to understand how to react in a calm manner to solve this problem and be a true problem solver. And then they can understand and recognize the emotions of another person. This person's at this place right now. Probably not best to have that conversation. Let's figure out when we can have it at a time when we're both in a better place. So it doesn't become an emotional blow up. It becomes a conversation where we can come at it with more objectivity.
Yeah, if they can take constructive criticism, that's an easy, fast test that occurs pretty quick. And so that'd be a first indication of what you've got.
I say do that in the interview process.
Although I have to say, it's interesting at my age and running this business, there's a lot of younger people on the staff. And, when they get separated, and I have this one millennial guy that is amazing, so smart, but a little emotional and mature. When that happens, I just go, take a break, go away, come back when you're ready. But the value that he brings on the other side of things, remember, it's all checks and balances. But the value he brings to the company is immense. The drama he brings sometimes is, I have to learn how to deal with that,
Yeah, I think one of the questions I always ask during the interview process is, what will this person need to succeed, and is it something trainable? Because some of the emotional intelligence factors, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to scaffold them enough, whereas some of the technical aspects of the job, I think they would have the ability over time to learn. I also really look for the ability to deal with ambiguity and change, because no one gets a job and it's exactly like it looks on the job description, and if that's your expectation, you're going to be a difficult member of the team. So the ability to navigate when things are gray and to be able to change, because we're in such a rapid, someone was saying on the last panel, it's such a rapidly changing environment we live in. So someone who can adapt very quickly is going to be a real asset.
That's a great point. That's exactly where I was going to go. Flexibility. I remember a professor in school telling me, walking into the class, and she would say, embrace the ambiguity. And then she would proceed to have us do random things throughout the class. We never knew what it was going to be, give an impromptu presentation, and I hated it. But as you know, for a library, we're entirely service-oriented. We're working with the public every day. No day's the same. We have things that happen all the time. So flexibility is so important, and being able to deal with new situations. That's key.
And again, I would say, if you're dealing with issues with employees, remember, they got in the door somehow. So you need to figure out, how can I assess people for the situation that they're in? And if the interview process maybe has a little bit of ambiguity to it, or if they have to create something for you and you give them feedback about it, those are all ways that you are in practice behaviorally seeing how they're going to behave in the workplace as you're interviewing them. And spending that time to do that is invaluable.
Again, you want people to be able to make decisions, in the moment. You don't want every decision to have to come to you. So it's so important to get
And
the
don't
people.
panic.
Sorry, what did you say?
Don't panic.
I think we're in the process of hiring right now, and I think one of my biggest red flags, and I don't know if this is fair or not, so maybe I should talk to an HR expert about it, but it's when, at the end, when you ask, and what questions do you have, and they don't have anything. Because I always feel like it indicates a real lack of either preparation or curiosity, neither of which is a good look. So I don't know if that's fair, but I always see that as a concern.
I would say I think it's a great red flag to consider. How invested or involved are they in the process? The only caveat I would give to that is if the candidate is someone who hasn't interviewed in a really long time, and they may not know what to do because they've only been dating for 6 months while they were married for 20 years, they're not going to look great at it. And if we're talking about an individual or individuals from a demographic that they haven't ever had been trained again, ever in their lives, to understand how the interview process might work. And that might be a place where you might give them more of a direction on, here's what we're expecting over the course of the next few days of the interviews or whatever those are. And if they're smart enough to figure that out from the direction you gave, that's another clue that they are trainable.
So, go ahead.
I'll give you just one. I think it's kind of funny because these guys have been doing it for so long, but our HR guys, if we get an entry-level employee coming in and they'll do the interview, when the interview's over, they take them out into the plant, which is, a big building. And then they say, go back to HR. And they look at how he's walking. Is he going in a hurry? Is he, just going like this? Or does he really, it seems like an indication of whether they really want a job or not. And it works.
Yeah, behavioral interviewing is huge, figuring out, understanding first of all what your culture is in your company, what you want to create, and then interviewing around that, but identifying those behaviors that are critical to the success of the mission. So in this, we've talked about this rock star team, right? We've done these great behavioral questions. So how do we afford them? So what is a small business? What are some ways that we can structure our salaries or budget and we've talked about it a tiny bit, but I want to kind of delve into it because that's a real thing right now, right? All of us in the room, whether we're thinking about an employee, which means we got to have cash flow as they were talking about in the previous panel, what are some ways to think about budgeting, structuring salaries? What are some opportunities that small business owners can take and implement?
I think the first thing is you need data. Don't have your candidate tell you how much the job pays. Thinking about the data, gathering competitive data, and there's so much free data out there that will help you. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, the workforce commissions, there's a lot of information out there that is really available to you to understand what is a range for a wage or a salary. And also, as small business owners, as we grow, we can get to a place where we can afford to add benefits later. In the beginning, maybe all we have is that wage. And you need to make sure you understand, again, what the whole pie looks like. And as you're growing your organization and you're adding benefits, sometimes people are like, oh, I'm kind of maxed out at this point with how much I'm paying someone because maybe I started at the top or I didn't know, and now, my per employee total burden is really high and it's freaking me out. Be considering, what does that roadmap look like several years from now when you've gone from 1 employee to 10 employees or 100 employees? How are you going to manage that budget? It's the same kind of forecast you do when you look at how are you going to manage your marketing budget or your fixed costs for your building, your rent, your lease. Thinking about all of those and planning for that, not just reacting by hiring bodies.
Thank you for mentioning. We, as a workforce board, publish labor market information, but we also, every day, take special requests from business owners saying, hey, can you give me information about salary, career ladders, so we can customize that for you. But there's also incentives available. So right now, for those of you in City of Austin, we're working with City of Austin's Economic Development Department. They have a new Chapter 380 incentive program, and so I would definitely encourage you to explore that. It's a great economic incentive to hire individuals who might not have been traditionally represented in an industry. And then there's a couple incentive programs that the Workforce Board can provide. One is called Subsidized Employment, and it allows you an opportunity to have a new employee for a period of several months at no charge to you. That employee actually is on our payroll 100%. We have another program called On-the-Job Training where we pay about 50% of that new hire salary for 3 to 6 months. So there are a lot of public benefits, and I know sometimes business owners are afraid because it's government, is it going to be burdensome, a ton of paperwork, but we're really happy to work with you, make it as easy as possible. So please, like I said, take a moment to talk to my colleagues out in the hall. And also the Texas Workforce Commission is here, and I know there's a speaker later talking about the Skills for Small Business Fund. Really, come to hear that talk, go out to their table, because that's another great benefit for y'all that allows you to develop a skilled workforce.
Yeah, I'd say as well that when you have the data, you're educated and armed, and that's really important. And also, you know, for growing businesses, temporary is a solution as well, because you may not need full-time personnel, or a small percentage of it is not full-time personnel, so it allows you some flexibility within your budget to get done what you need from the labor aspect, and not just, you know, at the entry-level stuff, but all the way up to higher-level stuff, where you know, you can contract part-time with a retired CFO, for example. They're looking for work, temporary businesses. They've already had a great career, and bring that knowledge to you, that service to you at a fraction of what you could go out and get it full-time. So, you know, take advantage, you know, think outside the box when it comes to meeting the needs of your company at its current stage and growth.
And when we're throwing all this information out there, it's important to do research, and there's data, and you can go and do. Keep in mind, I mean, all of these organizations that are here, there's so many possibilities to help you. And I know that, you know, in the information age, there's so much information that it's quickly overwhelming. But that's what connecting with these organizations can do. They can give you an entry point to kind of navigate how to start and how to begin. You know, visit your local library, talk to your librarian. We have a resource called A to Z databases, which is great for marketing. You can do whole lists of new residents that have moved to the area, but also you can do research on your industry, all the businesses in your area that do something similar to you. So there's great resources available to you. Reach out for the help and fight past that feeling of being overwhelmed.
Awesome, I'm sitting here taking notes. So we've had a juicy conversation. We would love to answer any questions that you might have. So throw your hand up, and I don't know if we have a mic, but if not, I will repeat the question. So any questions you have about building a great team? Yes, sir.
Thank you for giving such insightful, very good information. I appreciate all that. The second thing is, how is that technology, like Google or those guys, are helping you, and also the other side, you know, might be like an example that I think a restaurant. If Google somebody pays a restaurant, that comes up out of this one, whereas this one doesn't come. So how do you, what do you see from the technology aspect? It's enabling and also disabling, or what I call it, hindering conversation.
So if I can repeat the question, I hope I heard you correctly. So what's the impact of technology on our businesses, both positively and negatively? So this goes for searches. If someone's restaurant shows up in the number 1 slot and mine gets pushed all the way down to page 45. Oh, or I don't have the resources to pay them. So what's the impact of that?
Yeah, when it comes to finding candidates, I think a good point that you're making is that we market to our customers, and we're looking at social media as one of our strategies for helping us to grow our business and keep customers coming. And when you first start your business and you're first interviewing and hiring employees, you need to have a social media marketing campaign for candidates as well. But I would also say this, some of your best customers come from referrals, right? And I think some of your best employees come from referrals. So if you're going to develop a recruiting strategy, again, you need to think about what are all the levers that I want to push. And if you're always chasing that Yelp review, you know, sometimes that's not the best use of your time as a big B2C. And always chasing the Glassdoor or Google reviews with candidates. It's about you creating that strategy, and if you want to make sure that happy candidates or happy employees are commenting on those sites, but it's as much about you saying, here's our brand as an employer and what we stand for, and looking at all the levers that you can pull to have candidates come in.
Going back to your team, you know, if your vendors are part of your team, everybody's part of your team, by and large, a lot of referrals we get come from our vendors. Because they know what our capabilities are, they know what we do. We buy their products. We buy their raw materials. We buy everything that comes from them. We convert and sell to our customers. So they know what we do. If we do it well, we have a good reputation, and that comes to us in that form. The internet's been great for us because not so much from a marketing aspect. You have to be out there with everybody else. But for us, it's more access to what we need to run our business. and it's instant, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning even. So that's how it works for us.
Yeah, and I'd also, I mean, it's a longer range view, but encourage you to start making inroads into the K-12 system, into the community college and four-year university system. Are there internships you can offer? Are there site visits? You know, we love being able to take our high school students that we work with out to visit manufacturing facilities because it's not something most of them can visualize. They don't know what a career, say, in manufacturing looks like. So we'll take them out to see it, and they're like, wow, this is really cool technology. This is not what I imagined at all. So if you can take a longer term view in terms of how are you developing the pipeline early on to create brand awareness, to create interest in your career opportunities, it'll pay off. And I know in the past I've been able to hire some great interns on full time. So good to be able to, you're training them up in the system that you're building so they can often be very loyal and effective employees.
So it's a little different for libraries, but related. You know, in the age of Google, there's some people that will say things like, well, people don't need the library anymore. You can find whatever you need, right? So what have libraries done? We've adapted. We have tons of programming we do. We have hands-on programming. We have maker spaces, 3D printers, you know, and we've shifted from being like the guardians of information to that access point for information, for training and that sort of thing. So maybe some of that can relate to a small business as well, thinking about how do you adapt in the face of changes in technology.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
My question to you is with this generational shift that's occurring with this large amount of millennials that are entering the market space, what type of outside of the box type of benefits or incentives are you seeing that are actually working for this group?
So we have, just to repeat the question, there's a generational shift. I think it's actually going to be 5 generations in the workforce now, right now, or there's 7 or whatever it
So
is.
the Z's are 18.
So the question is what are some of the ways to attract and engage and hold on to those folks in the various generations now?
Well, the first thing I would just say is that every generation that enters the workforce, we say the same thing about them. I'm Gen X. I was told all the same things that millennials are hearing now, and I would have probably baby boomers were the same things as well. You know, when we had to walk uphill 15 miles each way. I think every generation hears that. So I think what it comes back to is you being real clear about what your differentiator is as a company, and you saying here is what we're about, and being authentic about it, and saying you're going to work hard here and you're rewarded. Or, this is the kind of challenges you're going to have to take here, or not. Being really honest and authentic about it. And I think that, for any generation, is what they want to hear. Because they don't want to have a dog and pony show on the inside, go, what did I just sign up for?
Yeah, they seem to want low pressure, tranquil environment.
I don't see all of them that way. I definitely see, I think millennials are very diverse.
It's interesting too because in Austin, where the tech companies are allowing the programmers to wear whatever they want, pretty much. The suit and ties are gone. It's a casual attire, and they value that. That's one thing they value. I found that interesting because I saw that just a couple of months ago. And I think what it really boils down to again is what you're offering as a company package. The hours, the benefits, what you can offer to them.
I think I'm a broken record, but I'm going to go back to emotional intelligence. It's all about that. You can have a really immature 50-year-old, a super mature 20-year-old. But anyway, every group that's graduating from high school or college is going to have their own sense of what is appropriate in the workplace and what do they want to do. And if you can get them to a no as fast as possible, that means you're not spending time trying to convince them to come work for you when they're never going to. You've been real clear about who we are and what we do and how you can be happy here. But not take it personally, because oftentimes the first couple of jobs that someone has, they're just kind of floundering like, oh, now looking back, that probably was the right thing to choose. And then being able to come back and say, hey, I interviewed 3 years ago with you guys. I'd really love another chance because I get it now.
We have like 30 more seconds.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Speaking about millennials, I find, generally, my experience, they're wonderful at figuring out things on their own. If they need to learn something, they'll figure it out, they'll learn it. They don't need a sit-down training. So providing opportunities to take on new challenges and letting them figure it out.
So thank you to this fabulous panel. I hope everyone enjoyed the conversation. A couple of housekeeping notes. 12:30, there's going to be an awesome keynote with John Garrett, who's the founder and CEO of Community Impact. So if you want to hear from a gentleman who's been voted as the best CEO by the Austin Business Journal, as well as the KPMG Executive Leadership Award from the Austin Chamber, you got to be back in your seats at 12:30. And in the meantime, as you head out, please make sure you visit the vendors and exhibits outside. As we said, there's great information out there. There's some things that I certainly want to jump on. So please, thank you so much. Give a round of applause to our panel and have a great rest of the day.